Hello everyone, Ryx here, with a bit of a different video than what I normally do for a new Genesis. Instead of a guide video today, I'm mostly just going to be covering the different types of augments that you can actually find in this game. I've been getting questions here and there about what augments would be good or what augments would be better for certain classes and such. I won't be discussing that here, though if I get enough of those questions down in the comments or by people asking me just in general, I'll make a follow-up video to this one that lists out the best augments that you should be using for melee, ranged, and tech. But for the sake of this video, we're only going to be covering just all of the augments in general, and at the end, after the augments, we will be also covering the fixas that you can find on weapons and armor out in the wild. So let's get right into it with basic augments first. Alright, here we have your basic augments. You have Stamina, which gives you HP at varying levels. You have Spirit, which gives you PP at varying levels. Then we start getting into your more damaging ones with Might, which gives you melee weapon potency. You have Precision, which gives you range weapon potency. Technique, which gives you technique weapon potency. Deafness, which actually increases your potency floor. Potency floor is your minimum damage value that you see on weapons. When it can do this much damage between this much damage, potency floor will increase the lower of the numbers. Then you have Guard, which increases your damage resistance. And then finally, we have the tricky one, which is Mastery. Currently, Mastery can only be made in the exchange item shop. Now, Mastery is a bit tricky as it is a bit difficult to make, but it does give you general potency increase, potency floor increase, and damage resistance at level 3. If you're able to craft this or save up for this in the future, I would recommend so, but seeing as how the game is still fairly new, I would actually wait until we get more content, as Mastery may just start dropping on its own in the future. Now, let's move on to the next one with Ward Augments. And here we have our Ward Augments. Now, the Ward Augments are mostly just used to increase the resistance against certain debuffs that can be afflicted on you by creatures in the game. Now, these are really not necessary for the most part, but if you're using the Gigant armor, maybe you just don't want to get inflicted by one of the debuffs, so you would invest into one of these augments. So to start it off, we have Burn Ward, which gives you burn resistance. Freeze Ward for freeze resistance, Shock Ward for shock resistance. In my opinion, if you're running a full Gigant and you're susceptible to being shocked, Shock Ward is probably, in my opinion, probably the best one, because Shock is a very annoying debuff as compared to everything else, as it will occasionally interrupt your combos by shocking you out of them and dealing some damage. And then we have Blind Ward, which gives you blind resistance, Panic for panic resistance, Poison for poison resistance, Pain Ward for physical down resistance, and then finally we have Sovereign Ward for all down resistance. Now, most people will not use any of the ward augments for the sole purpose that they do not give you damage, so these usually get left to the side. In the future, they may become useful as a material to maybe combine with something else that could give you damage as well as the resistances, but as it is right now, in my opinion, these are probably the least used of all the augments. Probably the best way to use these would actually be to increase your battle power at early levels, because if you use the level 3 ones, it will give you somewhat of a boost, maybe not a big boost, but it'll at least be a battle power boost that could help you meet the minimum requirements if you're still struggling with the 1100 or 1184 battle power areas. Now, for the next one, we're going to move on to the Soul Augments. Now, here we have our Soul Augments. Now, all of these can be acquired by simply going out in the world and killing very specific targets. The Form's Soul comes from the Formers, which you can fight out in the zones. It gives you melee weapon potency and damage resistance at level 2. Alt Soul, which comes from the Altars, gives you HP and damage resistance at level 2. Doll's Soul, which comes from killing the dolls, gives you PP increase as well as potency floor increase. Then we have the 3 big ones. Didal Soul can only be gotten from Didal enemies. That gives you PP and melee weapon potency. We have the Petis Soul, which only comes from Petis Vera. That gives you PP5 and range weapon potency increase. And then finally, we have Neck Soul, which only comes from the next enemies, the giant dragons. That gives you PP as well as technique weapon potency increases. Now, the soul augments are probably going to be your best ones to at least stock up on, so that way you have augments for your weapons in terms of the Didal Soul, Pedestal, and Neck Soul. Those are the ones I would recommend highly, as they do give lots of bonuses. Now we're going to move on to the Note and Domina augments, which are the regional augments. So the augments we have here are a little different than the other ones. So all of the Ale Note augments specifically only come from the 4 different Aleo regions that you can actually go out and farm. Ale Note A comes from Central Aleo, and it gives you HP and PP. Ale Note B comes from West Aleo, and it gives you range and melee and range weapon potency increase. Ale Note C comes from South Aleo. It gives you melee and technique weapon potency increases. And Ale Note D comes from North Aleo. It gives you range weapon potency and technique weapon potency. Now, if you manage to farm up enough of these by going through the areas, you can actually combine them at the item capsule lab over at the item enhancer, and these will actually make Ale Domina. Ale Domina gives you HP, PP, and potency increase. Of all of them, you always want to try to aim for Ale Domina, as it is the most powerful of all the augments in this category. Now, if you can't aim for Ale Domina for any reason, maybe you just don't want to farm for it, as it does take a lot of time to farm for this, you could also aim for one of the notes for the specific PSE burst areas. These include the Magnus note from Mount Magnus, giving you melee weapon potency, the Lab note, which comes from the Vanford Laboratory Ruins, giving you range weapon potency, and the Rezel note, which comes from Rezel Forest, giving you technique weapon potency. Now, the notes from the PSE burst areas gives you 1.5% potency, which is the exact same as Ale Domina. The only difference is that Ale Domina also gives you HP and PP. So it's roughly around the same damage, you're just missing out on some extra stats. But for the people who don't want to farm heavily for Ale Domina, the Magnus note, Lab note, and Rezel note will work out the exact same way in terms of damage. Now let's move on to just a couple quick ones here. We're going to start off with the Secreta Augments and how they kind of function. So this augment is a little bit different. There's only one in its class right now, so if you want it, you can just augment it onto your equipment, and there really isn't anything that it will overturn or anything. The main thing we have here is Alt Secreta. What it gives you is, in terms of a benefit, it gives you potency and potency floor increase. Really good damage increases. However, it also reduces your HP and reduces your damage resistance. So if you want to output the most damage possible, you always want to have at least one Alt Secreta on at least your weapon to do the most damage you possibly can. If you really want to live kind of on the edge, you can put it on all of your equipment, therefore increasing your potency and potency floor by a vast amount, but at the same time making it so you take more damage and lose 40 HP. This one specifically is kind of a trade-off. Now, there is actually an augment that can counter this, and we're going to go over this next. They're called the Dread Augments. Okay, so here with the Dread Augments, we have kind of an opposite to the Secreta Augments we were just talking about. The Dread Augments give you HP increase, PP increase, potency floor increase, and then damage resistance increase. So the issue that comes with the Dread Augments is that while it does give you HP, PP, damage resistance, it only gives you potency floor, and that's it. By it only giving you potency floor, it is actually taking up a slot by something that could give you overall potency. What some people like to do, however, is they would use the Alt Secreta Augment, which would lose HP and lose damage resistance, and then follow it up with a Dread Keeper 2 to kind of nullify the loss of HP, nullify the damage resistance, but give you more stats while keeping a balance. While this isn't really that good for overall damage, as there are better augments to put on for overall damage, if you're not really struggling too much for that little bits of about 1 to 2% damage, you could actually use Secreta with Dread and have no negative repercussions because of it. You'd only be missing out on maybe 1.5% damage overall. So, in my opinion, using Secreta and Dread together is a pretty good combination. Now we're going to move on to one of the more harder ones to farm in the current state of the game, and that is the Gigas Augments. So here we have the Gigas Augments. Now, these are fantastic augments. They give you HP and your potency of choice. The only issue is the only way to get these is directly from the Gigantix enemies. Now, in the current state of the game, there's a lot of arguments going on with the Gigantix and everything of their nature, and farming them is quite a difficult procedure as it requires a lot of people to band together to essentially kill them. But if you haven't heard of it, there has been a recent update, which I'll make sure to post down in the description as well, just for anyone who hasn't heard of it, that they're going to be changing how the Gigantix work in the sense that lower HP with different players, and as well as the fact that as long as you keep fighting them, they will stay in the zone, making them just a guaranteed kill through effort and perseverance. Now, starting it off, we have Gigas Might, which gives you HP and melee weapon potency. We have Gigas Precision, which gives you HP and range weapon potency. And we have Gigas Technique, which gives you HP and technique weapon potency. Now, obviously the best augments to combine with the Gigas Augments is obviously going to be their basic augments. You want to combine Gigas Might with Might. You want to combine Gigas Precision with Precision and Gigas Technique with Technique. This would warrant you to have the highest amount of potency for your damage type. So making sure to have a lot of these, as well as the basic ones, really works out for you in the end when it comes to your damage levels. Now, we're going to talk about a couple new ones and a couple rare ones. We're going to talk about the Element Augment next. Okay, so I wanted to crunch these two together because right now, in our glorious seasonal event that we have going on in the background, as you can see, we have received a very special augment, but currently, as far as we know, it is limited time to only this event cycle. So once the event is gone, this augment will no longer be obtainable as far as we're aware. So you want to make sure to farm it as much as you can right now. We're talking about Lightning Exploit, which gives potency plus 2.5% against enemies weak to lightning. Now, this is a very, very, very situational augment. While it does give you 2.5% potency, which is a large amount against enemies weak to lightning, there are only a couple enemies in the game that are going to be weak to lightning. Currently, because of the seasonal event, all veterans are weak to lightning, all the Gigas are weak to lightning, and all the urgent quest bosses are always going to be weak to lightning, because they have been before the event, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be after the event. So, in the current state, this augment is more particularly aimed at boss killing, as opposed to regular mobbing. Even though you'll encounter seasonal enemies, this augment is more suited towards boss killing like veteran hunting, Gigantix hunting, and urgent quests. And then our final list of augment here is one that you can only find. These only come equipped on silver prim swords and gold prim swords. It's called Esperio, and it gives you more experience through grinding. Now, again, these can only be found on these. There's no way to move them. You can't find just them to put on. So you just want to go out there and find them. And the only reason that this augment exists is solely to grind your weapons to the plus 40. Once you do that, these weapons are pretty much just to grind other weapons for future content. Now, I want to talk about Fixas next and how they work for both the weapons and armor. But we're going to start with the weapon Fixas first. Okay, so here we have the Fixa Augments. Now, Fixa Augments can only be obtained either on weapons or armor, but for this little category, we're going to go over the weapons one. So, to start it off, we have Fixa Attack, which gives you a damage increase. We have Fixa Fatale, which gives you critical hit rate increase, and then we have Fixa Termina, which gives you crit damage increase. Now, Fixa Attack, giving you 5% potency, is probably going to be the best one that you can get on any weapons, as 5% potency is tremendously high. Fixa Fatale, giving you crit rate, is about the same as if you had the Resurger potential on your weapons, as Resurger gives you 15% crit rate, and Fixa Fatale at max level would give you 13%. Now, Fixa Termina recently had an issue where instead of giving you just crit potency increase, it gave you all potency increase. However, this was fixed, as well as when Julian Dance was fixed in the last update. So now, Fixa Termina only gives you crit potency increase when you actually crit. You have to crit for the potency of Fixa Termina to work, making Fixa Termina kind of a difficult one to really benefit from as much as Fixa Attack. Now let's go over the Fixas that you can only get on your armor. Alright, so here we have the Fixas that can only be found on armor. Now these specific armors only come from bosses or enemies just out in the wild. As long as they drop, they have a chance to drop with any of these. Now to start it off, we have Fixa Performa that gives you PP cost reduction. We have Fixa Natura, which gives you natural PP recovery. And then we have Fixa Enthesia, which gives you active PP recovery. And then finally, we have Fixa Guard, which gives you damage reduction. Now, Performa and Guard, in my opinion, are probably the two best ones to get on armor, as Fixa Performa gives you 4% PP cost reduction, and Fixa Guard gives you 4% damage reduction. Two really good stats in the long term. Natura and Enthesia, I definitely keep butchering that, are powerful at high levels, but in the grand scheme, the other ones outshine them tremendously. Alright everyone, that's going to do it for the augments that I had to explain to you, as well as the Fixas. Now, as just a quick reminder, please be aware of the fact that you can't augment from the same kind of augment twice on a weapon or armor. As an example, this means that you can't use both might and precision on a weapon or armor because they both come from the basic augment tier list. It will make you pick between one or the other, and this goes the same for all of them. Ward, soul, all of them. As again, thank you so much for watching the video and hanging out till the end. If you'd like to stay up to date on any videos I'm going to be posting, please make sure to subscribe. I am going to try to keep to about a 1 video a week kind of schedule for y'all, so that way there's always something to enjoy here on the channel. If you have any questions, like always, please comment down below and I'll get to them as soon as I can. If you would like for me to make a follow-up video to this, where I go into detail about which augments, in my opinion, I say would be better for melee, range, or technique, also comment down below on that as well. In the future, I may branch out into other videos, and I hope to get your attention on those videos as well, maybe in the games that you enjoy playing on the side as opposed to New Genesis. But as always, thanks for stopping by. I hope you're having a lovely day. Make sure to take care of yourself, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye-bye!